Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our mac and cheese cooking demo. We're so happy to have you all here. I would like to introduce myself and some of my team members if there's anyone who's new here. So my name is Bina and I am a nutritionist for the ACL Grant Virtual Smart Living Initiative at the New York City Department for the Aging. And I have a few of my team members who will be moderating today's demo. As you just heard from Anna, she is our project assistant. We also have Priyana, who is one of my nutritionists, and she'll also be helping moderate, as well as Jaman, who is our dietetic intern from Columbia University. So also just something I want to mention is that all centers and programs should have received an email from New York City Aging about counting virtual programming units and a memo about nutrition education. If you have any questions about that, please contact your program officer or nutritionist. Please also save the date for our next month's cooking demo. On March 15th, we'll be doing fried rice, and that demo will be in English and in Cantonese. So please save the date. And again, it's also going to be at 11 a.m. If you have any recipe suggestions for future demos, you're always welcome to send those to us to the email that Anna put into the chat, virtualsmartliving@aging.nyc.gov. And I do also want to show you our cooking demo library, where we have our past demo recordings and recipe cards stored. So if you click on the left where it says English recipes, you'll see a whole list of cooking demos that were done in English. And if you click on any of them, you'll see the recipe card as well as the YouTube recording. So for example, here with summer breeze smoothie, on the left, you see the recipe, and on the right, you see the recording of it. And then if you scroll down to drop more, you'll see some fun facts about the recipe. We do also have some recipes that were done in other languages. So if you click on alternate languages, you'll see some in Chinese and some in Spanish. For some of these, we just have the recipe cards translated, but the demo was not actually done in that language. But feel free to check them out and try those new recipes if you haven't tried them yet. And then finally, on the bottom, you'll see where it says upcoming demos on the bottom left-hand corner, and you'll be able to see our upcoming cooking demos. Okay, and then another thing is that the New York City Department for the Aging also has a YouTube channel where you can access some of our previous cooking demos. Okay, great. And another thing that I wanted to mention is in addition to some other services that we provide, we also do have the opportunity for individual nutrition counseling. So if you are interested in meeting with our nutritionist and having a free virtual session, you can learn more about different ways to improve your health on a personal level. So let's say if you have diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, you're looking to manage your weight, or you have any health concerns, you can reach out to us, and you can ask your older adult staff to send a referral for nutrition counseling to the New York City Department for the Aging. And if you have any questions, just email us or give us a call at 929-262-0761, and Anna will put that phone number into the chat. This event has been brought to you by the ACL Grant Virtual Smart Living Initiative in partnership with the New York City Department for the Aging. So some of you might be wondering why we're doing mac and cheese today. And this recipe was actually inspired by one of our participants who a few demos ago, he asked, like, oh, like, can you eat mac and cheese if you want to eat healthy foods? And the answer is yes, you can. So that question was what led to the selection of today's recipe, and we'll be learning about how to make a healthier version of mac and cheese, the traditional version, and we're excited to show you how to do that today. So the first step before prepping any recipes is to make sure to wash your hands for 20 seconds with warm water and soap. And once you've done that, you'll want to start off by cooking pasta. So over here, you'll see that I have a box of whole grain pasta, and the recipe calls for a half a cup of dry pasta. So once you measure out a half a cup of dry pasta, you're going to put it into boiling water, and then you're going to cook it for just a few minutes. You don't want to overcook it because there will be a second step to the cooking process. So you don't want the pasta to come out very soft. So you're going to maybe just cook it for like 5 minutes. And then once it's cooked, you're going to drain the water out. And then you should end up with 1 cup of cooked pasta. So while the pasta is still warm, you're going to pour it into a pan. And I'm going to put this on medium heat. Okay. And then we're going to sprinkle 2 tablespoons of flour onto it. You can use white or whole wheat flour. Okay. And then you're going to stir that around a bit. Okay. And then the next thing is going to be to add in 1 cup of 1% milk. So we're going to pour that in. Okay. And let's stir that around a bit. And the purpose of the flour is to help thicken this. So the milk is going to take a little bit of time to boil. And then we're going to add in the cheese. So this is reduced fat cheese. And this is 1 cup of cheese. Okay. Okay. And so we're going to stir this around. And the recipe also calls for 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. So let's add that in. Okay. And so now we're going to give this some time for the milk to heat up and the cheese to melt. And this is going to take a few minutes. So while we're waiting for this to melt, are there any questions so far in the chat, Priyana?
Yes, one participant wants to know if the stove heat is on, and yes, you are doing it on medium, right?
Yeah, so this is on medium heat right now.
Yeah. Okay. Another question that came in is asking, what's the difference between whole grain and refined grains?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And over here, what you'll notice is that this on the package, it says whole grain. And this is different from regular white pasta because when it comes to grains such as wheat, for example, a whole grain includes the entire grain. There's different parts of a grain, like the bran, the germ, and the endosperm. So when you eat whole grains, it includes the entire grain as opposed to refined grains, which have some of those nutrients removed. And specifically, the fiber is removed. So it's really good to choose whole grains because then you get extra nutritional benefits.
Thank you, Bina. And then 2 more questions came in. One is asking what kind of cheese?
Yeah, sure. So what we use is reduced fat cheese. Over here, you can see on the package, it says reduced fat. So this is less fat than regular cheese, and this is specifically mozzarella cheese that we selected for this recipe.
Okay, thank you. Another member asked, you mentioned not to have the pasta soft, and what's the reason for that?
Yeah, so the reason for that is because right now we're cooking the pasta again. So in the first step, when you boil the pasta, if you overcook it, then the pasta will be like extremely soft. And over here on the box, it says al dente perfection in 6 to 7 minutes. So al dente means that it's like firm to the bite. And so if you cook it for 6 to 7 minutes, that's how long it will take to reach that point. So that's why I recommend just like cooking it for 5 minutes when you're boiling it, because during this step, it's going to also soften the pasta even more.
Thank you, Bina. One more question. Can we use chickpea pasta?
Okay, so I have seen recipes with using chickpea pasta. I haven't tried it, but I have seen people make mac and cheese with chickpea pasta, and it is higher in protein compared to regular pasta. It's also a good source of fiber and has more of other nutrients. So it is still possible to make it with chickpea pasta if you want to try that out. But chickpea pasta does tend to be a little bit more expensive than regular pasta.
That's a great idea to try different things. And then another question come in. Could you use pasta water and less milk?
So you could use one of the benefits of using the milk is that it's a great source of protein, calcium, and vitamin D and other nutrients. So by using the milk, it is making this dish more nutritious. You probably, I'm not sure how it would come out if you used water. It might not come out as thick and as creamy. So I'm not sure how that would come out if you tried it. But is there any specific reason why you would want to use less milk? If you could let me know, then we could think of maybe other alternatives that would work for you.
Okay, while we're on this, as a dietitian myself, do you have any suggestions for someone who is lactose intolerant?
Sure. So for somebody who is lactose intolerant, there's like different options. You could try using lactose-free or lactose-reduced products. So for example, there's something called lactate milk, and the lactose enzyme has been added to that. So that's like more tolerable for people who are lactose intolerant. You can also try using lactase enzyme drops or tablets. So around the time that you're like consuming this, you can take one of those tablets or drops, and it could make it easier to digest things that contain dairy. There are also some cheeses that come lactose free. But a lot of it could have to do with just experimenting for yourself, because like certain things from one person to the next might be more easily tolerated when it comes to dairy. So by experimenting and seeing what is comfortable for you, you'll be able to identify what are some things you should avoid and what are certain dairy products that you'll be fine with, because like naturally they do have less lactose.
That's a great idea. A member also shared that she uses almond milk.
Yeah, you could use almond milk if, let's say, if you are lactose intolerant, or if you are trying to avoid dairy. You could try to use that. It is a good source of calcium if it's like fortified with it, but it doesn't contain as much protein. If you are getting your protein from other sources, then that could be fine, but almond milk could be a great alternative, for the reasons that we discussed.
Yeah, and the same member also shared that she could use oat milk as well.
Yeah, you could use oat milk. Just bear in mind that Oat milk also doesn't contain as much protein as like regular cow's milk would, or as like soy milk would. So those are just things to keep in mind if you're trying to get more protein into your meal.
Two other questions came in. Can we use eggs and less flour?
Can you use eggs? I haven't seen that when I was looking at different recipes. I haven't actually seen that, so I'm not sure how it would come out. But my guess is that if you wanted to skip the flour, it would probably come out fine. It probably just helps to thicken it a bit, but it probably will be like still pretty tasty if you were not adding in the flour.
Okay. And another question came in, can we use veggie pasta or whole wheat pasta?
Well, we actually are using like whole grain pasta in this dish. Veggie pasta, you could try, there's a lot of different types of pastas. There's red lentil pasta, black bean pasta, quinoa pasta, brown rice pasta. So those are all different things that if you wanted to, you could try. And some of them, like the bean-based pastas, are like rich in protein and also high in fiber as well, making it even more nutritious.
What is the difference between whole grain? Is it the same as whole wheat?
So that's a good question. And when we say whole wheat is a type of grain. So whole grain is like more of an overarching term, and that includes wheat. It includes, like when we say whole grain, it could also include oatmeal, brown rice, bulgur. So whole grain is the more general term of different types of grains that are whole, that they're not refined and processed.
Oh, wow. And someone's asking, this recipe, how many does it serve?
So this comes out to 2 servings. We only used half a cup of dry pasta. So if you want to make it for more people, or if you want to make it for yourself and for it to last for more meals, you could definitely double the recipe or triple it, depending on how much you want to have the yield come out to.
Great.
And I just want to point out that you could see over here that it's the milk and the cheese are melting together, and it's coming out a lot more creamy as we're mixing it around.
Someone's asking, if it's brown, does that mean it is a whole grain?
So just because if you see something that's brown, it doesn't necessarily guarantee that it's a whole grain. Like sometimes you'll go to the store and you'll see brown bread. Don't automatically assume that it means that it's whole wheat bread, because sometimes bread could be brown if they add molasses to it, just to give it that color. So the way that you'll know if something is really a whole grain is, on the package, it might say whole grain, but take a look at the ingredients list. If you see that it says whole as like the first ingredient, whole grain or whole wheat, as you should be able to see here, then you'll know that it's a whole grain.
Yeah, I noticed there's a logo on it too. So is that something the participants should be looking for when they're buying whole grain products with the logo?
Oh yeah, maybe we could have that displayed, like the comparison of different labels. But before we do that, because this looks like it's becoming pretty thick, I want to add in the broccoli now. So let me just we have over here 1 cup of broccoli. I'm going to add this in and then mix it around a bit. Okay, great. All right. So at this point, as you can see, I think this looks pretty much ready to me. So I'm going to turn off the heat. And this is your healthy version of mac and cheese. And we can put it into a serving bowl. Let's do that here. nice and creamy and cheesy. Looks delicious and smells delicious. Okay. So here it is. I'm going to hold it up for you so that you could see it even more clearly. Steaming hot, fresh, cheesy mac and cheese. Enjoy. I hope that you'll try this recipe and make it and let us know how it comes out because it looks really good, right? What do you guys think?
Great.
Okay, great. So now would be a good time for us to display some labels to see some comparisons of, as you'll see, we have different labels taken from food packages. On the left-hand side, there's the whole wheat pasta. Then in the middle is the white pasta label. And then finally on the right is the chickpea pasta. So the first thing that you'll notice is a difference in price. The chickpea pasta is more expensive. It's like about double the price of regular pasta. And one of the first things that we always look at when we look at nutrition facts labels is the serving size. So as you can see here, the serving size for all of these is like 56 grams, which is like 2/3 of a cup or 2 ounces. It's the same thing. They're all the same serving size. So that means that if you consume that serving size, everything on the label refers to that. But let's say if you had double the serving size, then everything that it would be double the calories and double the nutrients. So now that we know that the serving size is 2 ounces of dry pasta, which is basically like about a half a cup of cooked pasta, the calories are all pretty similar based on the different types. But one major difference is the amount of fiber. So if we look down to where it says dietary fiber, you'll notice that the whole wheat pasta has 6 grams of fiber, whereas the white pasta only has 2 grams of fiber. So that's an extra 4 grams of fiber per serving that you're getting by choosing the whole wheat pasta. In terms of protein, they're the same, but the whole wheat pasta does contain more iron and more potassium compared to the white pasta. And also the chickpea pasta is high in protein, as we mentioned, so it's almost double the amount of protein in regular pasta. But, we are getting protein from other sources, like the cheese and the milk has protein. So I personally wouldn't spend the extra money on chickpea pasta just for the high amount of protein in there, unless you want it for other reasons. It is, if you look on the bottom, you'll see that the chickpea pasta is hot, like it is a source of other nutrients, the iron, potassium, magnesium, and phosphorus. So it's always good to look at our nutrition labels when we're shopping for groceries, because this helps us to be more informed as, consumers and make better choices.
Very good. Someone's asking if we could add white cheddar cheese.
So you could use cheddar cheese instead of the mozzarella if you wanted to. But what I did notice when I was in the grocery store is that I did compare a bag of mozzarella cheese versus cheddar cheese, and the cheddar cheese did seem to be higher in calories and in saturated fat for a similar serving size. So that's just, it might be okay for you if you like the taste of cheddar cheese better than mozzarella. That could be okay. It's just something to keep in mind for those who might be concerned about that.
What about vegetables? Can we use different kinds of vegetables instead of broccoli?
Sure. So if you don't have broccoli at home, or if you don't like broccoli, you could definitely feel free to use other vegetables in this dish. Some other things that I personally like to put into mac and cheese are things like mushrooms, peppers, onions, sometimes even garlic. And you can also, I've seen people put in cauliflower into their mac and cheese or carrots. So really go with the vegetables that you enjoy.
Great. Is there like a recipe comparison between the regular traditional mac and cheese and what you show us today?
Yeah, so I did pull out a label of a package of mac and cheese that I found. This comes frozen. And when I was reviewing the nutrition facts panel, there are certain things I would like to point out to you based off of this. So if you'll notice here, as we mentioned before, the first thing that you always want to do is look at the serving size. So there are actually 2 columns for serving sizes. Somebody might eat 1 cup or somebody might eat the whole container. So let's just go with assuming that, let's say somebody's going to eat this whole container for a meal. You'll see that the calories are 500 calories for if you eat the whole container. And then the saturated fat is 10 grams. So the saturated fat is the type of unhealthy fat, which may increase inflammation and could increase the risk of heart disease, you know, when people consume a lot of it. And 10 grams is like pretty high. It's very high for, you know, the amount for like one, you know, that's a high amount of saturated fat to be having, like, especially just from one dish. So, you know, that's why in today's recipe, I mentioned that we use 1% milk and reduced fat cheese, because those are lower in saturated fat compared to using, let's say, whole milk or just regular mozzarella cheese. You'll also notice the sodium on this is that per container, it says that it contains 1,200 milligrams of sodium. So if you consume 1 container of this mac and cheese meal, you've consumed 1,200 milligrams of sodium. Now that is a lot. The guidelines for sodium is that, you know, people should limit their intake of sodium to 2,300 milligrams a day, but for older adults, especially for those with high blood pressure, they should be limiting it to 1,500 milligrams a day. So by consuming this, a person will, like, if it's an older adult, they've already consumed majority of the sodium that they should be having in a day. And you know, when we cook at home, we usually end up consuming like less sodium as opposed to buying processed and packaged foods. And then finally, I want to point out the fiber. So 1 package of this just has 2 grams of fiber, which is, you know, it's not high when we compare it, especially to the amount of fiber we get from using whole wheat pasta. So these are some things to keep in mind, good reasons to, you know, eat less of processed and packaged foods and cook more at home. Especially, you know, this recipe is pretty simple, easy to make. And if you cook in bulk, you can always, you know, save some of it for later so that you can save time for prepping a future meal.
That's great. The same member that gave us a lot of suggestions, very good ones, also throw out another good one in there. He or she uses mac and cheese baked in the oven.
Yeah, sure. You can bake it in the oven. There's a lot of different ways that you can prepare it. And especially if like you're limited on, you know, kitchen equipment, you know, you can use what you have in order to prepare this meal.
And another question came in from the same member. Can we use low-fat cheddar cheese?
Yeah, you can definitely try using low-fat cheddar cheese if you like the taste. Cheddar cheese also does melt well. So, and cheddar cheese does tend to be like, it may be low in lactose for people who are concerned about that. So that could be a good option to use in this dish.
Bina, what is the nutritional benefits of having milk and cheese in the recipe?
Yeah, so you know, dairy is an important you know, food group. and a lot of Americans aren't consuming enough dairy products. So especially for older adults, it's important because dairy is a great source of calcium, and certain dairy products like milk have vitamin D added to it. So those are really important nutrients for maintaining strong bones. And as we're aging, we're being concerned about our bone health is really important. So that's why it's important to have dairy products, and it's good to choose the low fat or the fat-free ones because they contain less of the saturated fat, which we talked about earlier.
Great. Everyone's saying thank you. But what is low moisture cheese? What does it mean?
Yeah, so on some packages of cheese, you'll see that it says low moisture, and I'll point that out over here. You see it says low moisture. So this basically is different from fresh mozzarella. Fresh mozzarella cheese has a high amount of moisture, so it's best eaten cold and fresh. But this is like regular mozzarella cheese, and it's been dried out. Some of the moisture has been removed. This makes the cheese melt better. It helps with the browning, and when it melts, it's not creating like a puddle, but it's going to melt better as opposed to using fresh mozzarella cheese.
Very good. If anyone have any more questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. We got like a little bit questions here and there. And another question came in is, can you freeze the mac and cheese?
Yeah, so you could freeze the mac and cheese let's say if you want to prepare a lot of it at once. You can, if you're not planning to eat it all within 4 days, which is like the general recommendation on how long to keep leftovers in your fridge for the food to be safe, then you can put it into a freezer bag, flatten it out, and put it into your freezer. And it should be good for about, if it's tightly sealed and if your freezer is at the right temperature, it should be good for up to like 6 months. And then if you want to, you can just thaw it in your fridge overnight, and then it'll be ready for the next day for you to heat it up and enjoy it.
Great. One more question came in asking about exactly what is fiber.
Yeah, so fiber is it's a type of carbohydrate, and it's found in things like fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, beans, lentils, nuts, and seeds. And so it has a lot of health benefits for us. Fiber helps to keep us full for longer. So, for people who are concerned about their weight, they can be satisfied with less when they eat fiber-rich foods. Getting enough fiber could also help you to stay regular. It could help to improve cholesterol levels and lower the risk of heart disease and stroke, type 2 diabetes, obesity. So there's really so many health benefits associated with eating enough fiber. And the recommendation is to make half your grains whole grains. So over the course of the day, you probably will be eating different types of grains, whether it's bread or rice or pasta or cereal, and try to make like half of those whole grains to for that to be a source of fiber.
Very good explanation. It's like very clear. Anyone has any more questions?
And I also do want to mention, in terms of broccoli, how nutritious broccoli is. So back in November, we did a cooking demo on, it was cauliflower mashed potatoes, and we mentioned that cauliflower is a type of cruciferous vegetable. Broccoli is also a type of cruciferous vegetable, and cruciferous vegetables have certain phytochemicals in them, which are like substances that can help lower inflammation and reduce the risk of cancer. So broccoli is a source of phytochemicals. It's also dark green cruciferous vegetables are a source of vitamin A and vitamin C. Vitamin C is really good for your immunity. And broccoli is also a source of calcium. So broccoli is really nutritious, and you can, it's also a source of fiber, and it's low in calories, which makes it really nutrient dense. So it's a great thing to add into this dish, giving it the texture and the flavor and adding in the nutrients.
Another question came in. What are your thoughts about probiotics?
So probiotics are sometimes like found in certain dairy products, like they've been added to it, such as yogurt. And probiotics could have health benefits. For us, it could be a good thing to try to eat foods that contain probiotics, because they could have health benefits. So yeah, I think it's mostly like yogurt that contains when it comes to dairy, I think of yogurt when I think of probiotics. Priyana, feel free to add anything if in response to that question.
I think you answered it very well.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Someone is asking if this nutrition value, is it the same after we freeze it?
That's a good question. And I think that overall it should be pretty similar. Sometimes certain nutrients may be less. For example, vitamin C is a nutrient that might lower after some time. But in terms of the key nutrients, those should still be present. And personally, I wouldn't worry too much about any nutrient losses from freezing it. Freezing usually does maintain the nutrients, but if there are any nutrient losses, it's probably not a lot. And I would definitely say the pros would outweigh any cons of that, because by freezing, you're making it so much easier for yourself in the future to be able to easily pull it out, defrost it, heat it up. You save so much time, and you don't have to do all of the preparation and all of the steps again. So I personally, I love cooking them in bulk and freezing it, because it just helps to save so much time, and it makes healthy eating so much easier. So I'm a big fan of freezing food.
I can agree more. I think it helps us not to order out, just because there's food healthy that's already pre-made.
Exactly. Yeah, sometimes it makes it when you think about cooking, you might just be discouraged by oh, I have to set up, prep the recipe, clean up. But when it's when it's in the freezer, that all you need to do is heat it up.
I don't see any questions right now.
Okay, and I also do want to mention about the broccoli that you could use in this recipe. You could use fresh broccoli, you can use frozen broccoli. As you know, I love my freezer, so I did use frozen broccoli because if I'm spending the money to buy broccoli, and I don't want to just keep it in my fridge and not use all of it and for it to go bad. So I like to put it in my freezer and just use whatever I need and then seal it tightly and put it back in there. So because I used frozen broccoli, there's different ways that you can defrost it. You can put it into the microwave, you could steam it. And there's different ways of using that. So just something to keep in mind, that there are different options of, the form of broccoli that you can use. Okay, great. So at this point, I just want to wrap up with some of our announcements for any of those who may have missed it at the beginning of the demo. So all centers and programs should have received an email from New York City Aging about counting virtual programming units, and a memo about nutrition education. If you have any questions about that, please contact your program officer or nutritionist. And also, please save the date for March 15th, Wednesday, which is a Wednesday, and at 11 a.m. we'll be doing our next cooking demo. The recipe is fried rice, and the demo will be in English and in Cantonese. If you have any recipe suggestions for future demos, please feel free to email that to us at virtualsmartliving@aging.nyc.gov. And if you are interested in having a free virtual nutrition session with our nutritionist Priyana, then you can ask your older adult center staff to send us a referral. And you can also reach out to us directly if you have any questions. Our number is 929-262-0761. And I want to thank my team members for helping to moderate today's demo. Thank you to Anna, Priyana, and Jaman for your support. And this event has been brought to you by the ACL Grant Virtual Smart Living Initiative in partnership with the New York City Department for the Aging.